guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved. So is the very structure of our society. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals.
Good evening and welcome to the American Awakening. My name's Patrick Berge. I am the host of the show, aka OG Iceberg, working on that. I am officially, that's my official rap name, but I do not actually rap, so that's a work in progress right there, my friends. This is oddly enough not working. It was a great idea, but hey, what do, right? So what I'm going to do here is, if you will all bear with me one moment, we'll just move this over there. Pull the show notes up here. What do you think? I actually know what I'm doing. So, got a great show lined up for you tonight, though. Actually, we have, tonight, or today, is episode 4. Oh my God, right? We are literally into our 4th episode. I didn't think we would make it past 3, and in fact, it was looking pretty sketchy just moments ago because my audio again was failing. But everything seems to be working pretty darn good right now, so we're going to go with that. Tonight's episode is episode 4, and the theme tonight for the American Awakening is draining the Pasco swamp. Looking forward to that because actually I've got some amazing swamp creatures lined up for you that will absolutely disgust and dismay you, disappoint you, but not probably surprise you with our local officials, our local elected officials at our in our tax office and with our congressmen, right? I mean, it's just absolutely amazing how these swamp creatures get away with what they're doing, you know? But that's what this show aims to solve, or at least in our little neck of the woods here, we're going to do the best that we can, right? It was election night last night. Yesterday was November 3rd. Today is Wednesday, November 4th. And absolutely amazing that, yeah, Trump is still your president today, folks. You know, could have gone much worse, being that, like, Biden was our president. That would have really sucked, because I'm not doing that mask thing everywhere I go. I looked at his face last night, and it was just awful. The guy's like, you know, he's absolutely just a hot mess. Let me do this here real quick. I want to switch that over to there. Yay! So we'll see if that's actually running. I have a brilliant timing thing set up so I can try to keep everything going in order and moving along smoothly, but clearly being that, clearly being that we're like 5 minutes into the show and this slide should have changed at 3 minutes. Well, yeah, no, something's not working right. So I would like to take a moment to give a station ID right now. Thank IRNbroadcast.com for allowing the Freedom Stream to have this broadcast, this podcast. We do broadcast every Wednesday now from 7 to 8 Eastern Standard Time. I do not believe we are on daylight savings time anymore, so that's good. Bad, good. They stole an hour from me the other day. I know you gain an hour, but I call it stealing an hour because I liked that hour that they took away from me, and I want that back. So, you know, it's all just the broadcasting company's garbage trying to keep, you know, prime time hours as best as they can. And so, you know, what are you going to do? I'd like to take a moment and thank all of our Patreon supporters. You can find us at patreon.com/the ShadowNet Hacker. You can also watch us on freedomstream.tv. You can find all the information out there. That is a work in progress. I'm going to be updating that some more, and I'm actually going to be doing some actual journalistic work here. I got a business card that says I'm a journalist. Actually, it says I'm an anti-journalist journalist, but same thing, right? We're exposing the deep state. You can also follow us on YouTube at The American Awakening, which is where I will upload this broadcast, which is pre-recorded. I will upload this broadcast for 8 o'clock premiere, video and all, assuming the cameras don't lock up on me and everything, at The American Awakening on YouTube. And so I have a video that I want to play for you right now. It's just, so I have a little small backstory on this guy, Mike Fasano. He's the tax collector in Pasco County. Used to be, I think, dog collector, something else, I'm not sure. He's overqualified for, he's underqualified for dog collectors. So when you see when you see this video, you'll see why. So let me put this on, right? So this is Mike Fasano. He's our county tax collector. He's a registered Republican, apparently all of his miserable life. And he decided to go Never Trump on CNN the same day that Trump arrived in Tampa about a week ago to do a big event here, pre-election. And he decided to go on CNN and announce that he is a jackass. Let me play this here for you all real quick. Hold on one moment. This actually might just work if I, well, no, I pause that there. So there we go.
Uneasy. Republicans turning out at a higher percentage than Democrats in crucial Miami-Dade. It comes as a top Republican in that key state who helped lead his party in both chambers of Florida's legislature is supporting a Democrat for president for the first time.
I'm as Republican as it gets, a conservative Republican.
No, he's
but
not.
Donald Trump is an embarrassment.
No, you
to
are.
our party, to our country, and to the rest of the world. You see, I love my party, but I love my country more. My name is Mike Fasano, and in 2020, I'm a Biden Republican.
What a piece of garbage.
Mike Fasano is out front with me now, former Majority Leader of the Florida House, President pro tempore of the Florida Senate, currently serving as Pasco County, Florida tax collector. And I appreciate your time,
CNN
sir.
chick interviewing him.
I'm going to ask you about this significant endorsement that you're making in a moment. But first, this news that we have, Florida's early vote ends this weekend. You've already surpassed 6.5 million people who voted early in 2016. Democrats do lead in the early vote, but Republicans obviously have narrowed that edge, and we keep hearing about Miami-Dade. The Republicans are turning out at much higher percentages than Democrats in Miami-Dade, that crucial county. When you look at that, what do you see? Do you see a big warning flag for Biden?
Well, I mean, regardless of a warning flag, it definitely should get the attention of any campaign when you see your opponent's numbers in a county where there's a lot more Democrats than there are Republicans. I would be certainly concerned that the Republicans are outpacing the Democrats in Miami-Dade. But this is not unusual. Miami-Dade has done this. I've been in Pasco County, Florida now for over 50 years. And it seems like Miami-Dade has a difficult time, especially the Democrats, in getting their votes out every election.
All right. So I think that context obviously is so crucial. With your experience. Now, you talk about, 50 years, and you have been a Republican all of that time.
Yes, well, I've been a Republican since I turned 18. Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Yeah,
so,
wait till you hear
lifelong.
about that.
And you told a local Florida paper as you've now have come out for Joe Biden, a Biden Republican, as you put it, quote, it got to the point where I said to myself, I've got to speak up, especially as an elected Republican official. Not to say anything is a cop-out. Shame on me for waiting too long. How hard was it for you to come to this decision and to speak out as someone who's been a registered Republican since you were 18?
Great question. I did not support Donald Trump 4 years ago. I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. I actually skipped that race. First time in my life, I skipped a presidential election and went right down to the remainder of the ballot. This year, I just couldn't stand by and stay idly by and not say anything. Absolutely shame on me for not saying something sooner. I should have announced my support for Biden and my disappointment in Donald Trump. You know, when Donald Trump got elected 4 years ago, many of us, especially Republicans, thought, you know
garbage.
what, maybe he will bring this country together. Maybe he will change and cross
right. You were thinking that, I'm sure.
People from the other side into the White House and work with them and do good for our country. But unfortunately, he hasn't done that. If anything, he's taken out of the White House decency and compassion, patriotism. And really what we have in the White House now is hatred, and we need to get rid of that.
So, you say, again, as an elected Republican official, not to say anything is a cop-out. Shame on me. I just want to be honest with you. Like, there are other elected officials in your party who clearly disagree with many things Trump does, and they don't like to talk about it, and they avoid it, and they try everything they can to run the other direction from discussing it. And even now, at this moment, I don't know what they're going to do or who they're going to vote for. Some of them may vote for him, but some of them may not. But they are not doing what you're doing. Why do you think that is still the case?
Because they're decent human
beings I had the
and
answer
not
for that,
garbage.
And I apologize not having that answer for you. I will tell you this. Since I have come out over the last 24 hours, 48 hours, announcing my support for Joe Biden, I've heard from many Republicans, in fact, elected officials, who have thanked me for speaking out. I wish they would do the same. I can't speak on their behalf, but certainly for myself, I just felt it was important. I have a responsibility as a Republican elected official for many, many years that I need to let those who have that have supported me over the years that who I'm supporting for president and why I'm not supporting a Republican this time.
All right. Well, Mike, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Well, no, you really don't need to say that, Mike, you piece of garbage. But okay, you seem compelled to say that, so we're gonna just pick it up from there and let people know exactly who this crook really is. And I can say that because when you see what I've discovered on this piece of human garbage, you will be like, okay, yeah, he pretty much looks like a crook to me. So this past Monday, I went down to the Pasco DMV. That is also the tax collector's office here in Pasco County, and I go down there with the to change an ID thing, make sure that my voter registration was all squared away, and I'm sitting there. They're closed on Tuesday. This was a Monday, the day before the election. They were closed on Tuesday because, of course, nobody can find time to vote in an 8-hour business day. No other businesses get to shut down for the day on election day, just government officials, because apparently the people at the DMV are too incapable of running out on lunch and like the rest of us have to do and actually, voting or voting early. No problem for that. If you had to work, schedule permitted. Yeah, no, we got to give them the day off with pay. I think that's a much better idea. Not, right? So we got, so I'm sitting there in the waiting room and I'm looking up, and of course the DMV is where you go to get, your driver's license, you go to get your registration, and by the way, when they request your registration, they require that you provide a copy of your insurance, right? It's a requirement, right? If no insurance, no registration, no license plate for your car, you got to have insurance. It's a requirement. If you don't have insurance, you get pulled over, you can get thrown in jail. So it's literally one of those laws where it's a law and there's a gun to your head if you don't do it. And I'm sitting there watching, and all of a sudden I'm watching the big, they got TVs all through there. And those TVs are all showing like the countdown of the numbers. So I got my number, 1,005,005. And I look up there and they start running auto insurance ads from a local auto insurance person. And I'm like, well, what the hell is that? That's kind of sketchy right there. You're making me get insurance, and now you've apparently cut some deal with an insurance company. I mean, seriously, you got to run ads? And so, then I noticed that then like another screen popped up that said, hey, it showed a picture of Mike Fasano, tax collector, because of course we need to know what he looks like sitting in there. Barf me out. Little weasel. And it comes up and says, yeah, I'm Mike Fasano, tax collector. And then it says that that all proceeds generated from advertisements, like the auto insurance advertisement you just saw, all proceeds are donated to a company called, what is that? Pasco, let me get it right here. Pasco, and I'm screwing this up here, but Pasco TC Gives Inc., right? So let's talk a little bit about Pasco TC Gives Inc., but first I would like to take a quick moment, remind everybody that thank everybody for on my Patreon supporters. You can find me at patreon.com/theshadowNetHacker. Can't do this stuff, can't expose these people without your help. Honestly, folks, it really helps. It goes to funding everything. Every penny goes to funding what we're doing here. It's a big deal. And I'd also like to thank IRN broadcast.com for that. And again, you can follow this on YouTube at the ShadowNet Hacker and freedomstream.tv. I'm actually trying to put these out more frequently like actually you're supposed to. I didn't even put any music up today. Not going to, because we got too much to go into, and if I press that button, I'll probably screw something up, right? So Pasco TC Gives Inc. Oh, that's interesting. So I look up Pasco TC Gives Inc., and sure enough, guess who the registered agent is for Pasco TC Gives Inc., a nonprofit that started, I think, back in February of 2019. Wow, Mike Fasano, our beloved tax collector, is the registered agent, right? Every nonprofit I've worked for, and I'm actually starting a veterans nonprofit, safevet.org, everyone I know, the registered agents don't do that stuff for free. They get paid. So I'm kind of assuming, I got to find out what Mike Fasano is making. I mean, this is some sketchy shit right here, folks. So Fasano is a registered agent, but even better, Greg Giordano, the assistant tax collector, is the president of Pasco TC Gives Incorporated. A nonprofit, I'm sure, is giving at least 5% of every dollar, 5 cents out of every dollar, to some local charity. I mean, who knows, right? This is as sketchy as the Clinton Foundation stuff. Why, people? Why do we allow this to happen, right? I mean, they couldn't have found like I said, I got a veterans nonprofit, right down the street from the tax collector's office. I've never seen any of that insurance ads money coming to help out our veterans nonprofit. I'm pretty sure these guys are profiting from it. Is Greg Giordano just doing this without any profit? Managing a nonprofit as president of a nonprofit without just from the goodness of his heart, I find that really a bitter pill to swallow, you know. I'm not buying that at all. So we do have some people, I do have some people helping me out that are digging up this stuff on these people. And, you know, let's dump that into voicemail. Shame on me. It's my own show and I didn't put my phone on vibrate. But no, this is as messed up as it gets, folks. So we got this guy who is apparently a Democrat all his life. Oh my goodness, he's been a Republican since he was 18. And this was the first time he's ever supported a Republican candidate or a Democrat, and he just felt compelled, you know. He couldn't see how all the other Republicans could live with themselves in Pasco County for not coming out and speaking out against the Republican president, because that's what every good elected official that got that position, because other Republicans in his county went out and put out street signs and contributed, donated to him. I'd be asking for that money back and certainly checking his financials. But they put all this effort into it. They get the guy elected, and then, you know, midterm, he starts pulling crap like this. It's actually completely, it's exactly what I knew he would do. It's exactly what I knew would happen. I was saying this back in 2004, right? I'll go into that in a bit. When I ran for election supervisor in Pasco County in 2004, I ran with no political affiliation, because why should the guy counting your votes have a political affiliation? It just seems like such a logical thought, right? But when he says that he's never supported another Democrat as a Republican, well, in 2004, I ran against Kurt Browning for supervisor of elections. Again, I ran no political affiliation. Kurt Browning ran, well, he was a Democrat for 26 years. He was the incumbent Democrat election supervisor in Pasco County for 26 years, people. And midterm, just like our friend Mike Fasano, or actually probably Browning, believe it or not, had more balls than Fasano, and actually switched parties midterm, 2 years into a 4-year term, again, where people supported him, you know, people trusted him. You kind of should be able to trust the guy who counts your votes, right? But, you know, I look at this guy and I see a guy that switches parties mid-term as being like, this is who's counting my votes? And so, you know, and I was like, to the Pasco Republicans, I was like, are you guys really that stupid that you need a seat? You need this supervisor of election seat so badly that you're going to embrace a 26-year piece of crap traitor who just switched midterm from Democrat to Republican. You're just going to embrace this guy because you want another R win in your column? So I ran against Kurt Browning. I pointed that stuff out. We had two key things that we ran against each other on our platforms. I was running against, obviously, nonpartisan election officials, because why should the guy counting your vote actually have a political affiliation? That just seems pretty simple, right? And I ran against touchscreen voting machines. See, Kurt Browning was the not only the supervisor of elections for Pasco County for the last 26 years, he was the president of the Florida Supervisor of Elections Association, and according to other election officials who went publicly out on this, He was the most staunch advocate for touchscreen voting machines in the state of Florida, right? So Florida is looking at spending $175 million, I believe they ended up spending, probably closer to $100 million, on these touchscreen voting machines. And there was a debate going on right after the 2000 election. Remember the dangling Chads in Florida, right? So, you know, these guys figure, hey, the best way to make people think that we actually fix the problem in a reasonable way, logical way, is to throw tens of millions of dollars at something that doesn't provide a paper ballot. I mean, when they do a recount on touchscreen voting machines, they basically hit print ×2. So it prints out 2 receipts, right? So many vulnerabilities. I actually went to the election supervisor's office after Hurricane Charlie, I believe it was, in Naples, and did a recorded there the election supervisor's office with their millions of touchscreen voting machines sitting there on election day, or early voting, when early voting had just started. And they were all sitting there not being used because Naples didn't have, Fort Myers didn't have any power, right? They just had a hurricane. And so, you know, logically they solved that problem by diverting generators, 500 generators from hurricane victims to the touchscreen voting machines. That solved that problem for voting, but kind of pissed off, I imagine, a lot of people who could have used power after that. You know, that's how these people work. So, again, I'd like to do a quick identification, thank our Patreon supporters. You can find us at patreon.com/ShadowNetHacker. Broadcasting live every week, from every Wednesday from 7 to 8 on IRNbroadcast.com. God willing, and this camera working, we'll broadcast a premiere of this exact stream 8 to 9 tonight on that's Eastern Standard Time on YouTube at The American Awakening. Oh, and my Twitter is at PFC40book. Had some great tweets last night. I actually recommend you guys check those out. So, at any rate, when I ran for supervisor of elections in Pasco County in 2004, again, I had those 2 main issues that I, for my platform, the nonpartisan election officials and touchscreen voting. And in fact, the debate in Pasco County at the time, I was actually working for a heart and vascular clinic. I was married, I had a wife, I had 2 kids, minivan, house. I was the network administrator for a heart and vascular clinic over in Tampa. And I saw they were doing like a public, a thing where the public could come out and speak and air their questions or concerns about the $7 million that Pasco County was getting ready to spend on touchscreen voting machines. And so I went there, although I hadn't secured my position. I had not collected the 2,312 petitions that I needed to get my name on the ballot. But I did, so I was still in the process of that. So Kurt Browning's up on stage. He was actually, had just switched. He was now running as a Republican, again, midterm, for the supervisor of elections position. And that's one of the things that like really ticked me off so bad that I stood out in front of Publix and collected 2,312 petitions to get my name on the ballot, because I'm like, this just can't stand. I don't know, maybe it was 9/11. After 9/11, I started getting more involved civically in my community. Maybe it was the fact that I had, you know, I was a father now, I had kids, I was more active in my church, I don't know, you know, whatever the issue was, I was like, listen, you know, I understand the problem because I'm an IT security guy, and I'm like, this is stupid. We're spending $7 million on these touchscreen voting machines that don't leave a paper trail, and you could easily hack. You could hack it with a pellet gun just by shooting out one of the transformers at a really in a predominantly Republican or a predominantly Democrat polling facility, right? So just wrought with problems. And I was advocating the optical scanning systems, right? Those were about $7,000 a piece, and which was the same cost for each of the touchscreen voting machines. But unlike the touchscreen voting machines, which required like 25 to 50 of those units in each precinct, which is where the $7 million price tag came from. That doesn't include, the battery issues that they were going to be replacing every year, all of the garbage, the extra IT maintenance, everything that comes along with that. It was probably well over 10 million within the first couple years, but never really got that far. Because I was running on the optical scanning systems. You'd need one in each precinct, 2 if you wanted HA, high availability, right? So I recommended Pasco get 2 for each precinct. If one failed, you could scan them in with another one. That gives an immediate count to the precinct, to the election supervisor's office from each precinct. Gives timely reports, and you have that paper trail. Democrats supported me overwhelmingly. Republicans supported me overwhelmingly. I ended up losing that race, obviously. I'm running with no political affiliation, using my then wife's bathroom repair money, bathroom remodeling money from our tax return to fund my campaign, turning down pretty much all contributions. And from like any outside source. And then, so I go to this event and I raise my hand and I ask, I'm like, Mr., so I was like, Mr. Brown, why are we spending so much money on these machines that nobody likes, they're unsafe, and they cost like 1,000 times more than the optical scanning systems? And he was getting ready to answer, right? And just as he's got the microphone in his hand, and just as he gets ready to answer, this little weasel, I'd never met this guy, but had no idea who he was. This little weasel runs across the stage. He's like a fraction of Browning's height. I was like, oh, look, it's Hervé Villachez. And he grabs the microphone. God is my witness. Grabs the microphone out of Browning's hand and starts yelling at me. You're running for election. You can't be asking questions here at this event. And I'm like, seriously? Why not? I'm also a constituent. I'm a taxpayer. Why? So he's literally shaking. So, like the good mother hen, Mike Fasano runs over and, defends this 26-year Democrat, again, just turned Republican. And he's defending him. So I'm listening to Fasano in that CNN interview going, no, this isn't the first time you supported a Democrat. You supported Kurt Browning. And how did that end for Pasco County? And I warned Pasco County. I said, you guys are freaking, I said to the Republican Party, because I spoke at both events. I was invited to groups within both parties to speak. I had a debate against Kurt Browning. There was a couple hundred people there at the time. I think it was Pasco Community College or something like that. There was a couple hundred people there, and actually I had several newspaper outlets come up to me and tell me that they thought that I actually won that election. And here I am. I was petrified. I had no idea what the hell I'm doing. Not a politician. Again, I'm like this IT guy that generally prefers to stay off the radar, just trying to inject some reason into these stupid political hacks that are just spending taxpayer money because they were too incompetent to run a proper election, and now they got to cover it up after the dangling chads and everything by just spending more money and giving people all these little flashy lights, right? Hey, we're yeah, that'll work great. These flashy lights solve all the problems. No, people, they caused more problems. So, yeah, I created a very high level stress, a moment which I now am prouder than I was even 2 days ago before I found this stuff out, and I couldn't have been much more prouder of pissing this piece of garbage off, right? This political weasel. These guys have been, these guys have been in office. Like he said, he's probably been in office around here 50 years. Most of the newspaper articles writes him off as, it lists him as, the Republican old guard, the old guard Republicans of Pasco County. And I'm like, seriously, right? There's nothing conservative. Those old guard Republicans in Pasco County, you know what they consisted of? Freaking racist bastards that would steal and cheat. And I mean, just look, Live PD Pasco County was like the #1 YouTube Live PD, I think, several years in a row. That's not an accomplishment that congressmen should brag about, or elected officials should brag about, but that's the best that they got. In fact, I think our congressman ended up getting rid of Live PD in Pasco County because, God forbid, voters actually saw what was going around here with all the crackheads and the meth abuse. Right here, Jesus, we're at Dump Towers in beautiful Pasco, Newport Richey, Florida, and we're in a medical marijuana facility. Not really complaining about that. I think it'd be better off people smoking legal weed than freaking meth and having all of their teeth fall out, and then the only job you can get at that point is working for an IHOP or or a Denny's. Sorry, Denny's. Right? But they don't want to show you that. So they just put more flashy lights. They spend more money. So funny ending to this, though, right? So Browning wins. He gets, but that same election, Charlie Crist, the Republican, who's now a Democrat congressman in Clearwater. I know you need like one of those playbooks to keep up with all this garbage, right? But so Charlie Crist wins election supervisor. Wins governor, and one of his first orders of business was to tap Kurt Browning, who successfully beat me. I had ended up getting almost 18% of the vote, and you can look that up at like PascoVotes.com in 2004. I'm actually proud of that. I ended up getting almost 18% of the vote with no political affiliation and no money or anything. So it kind of says that I had a message that was resonating between both parties, right? And but he wins, and Charlie Crist, the Republican who won Republican governor right then, who is now again a Democrat congressman, Charlie Crist taps Kurt Browning to be Secretary of State for the state of Florida. And one of Browning's first order of business, again, he ran completely on the platform of touchscreen voting machines. I ran the platform of optical scanners. Touchscreen voting machines was a waste of money. Well, one of his first orders of business, as God is my witness, look this up, one of his first orders of business was to ban touchscreen voting machines statewide across Florida. The research that I did, and I have articles written on freedomstream.tv that actually show the newspaper reporting from Miami Herald and other reportings, show that in some cases, some counties still owed $35 million on their touchscreen voting machines that they hadn't paid off, right? And Kurt Browning, instead of he tried originally contacting the voting machine companies back and saying, hey, our bad, will you buy these back? And they said, sure, we'll give you $1 a piece for these $7,000 a piece machines. So Browning takes that personally offensively and decides to send most of them to a recycling center in Tampa, where they were, the plastic cases were shredded for recycling material, and like the little CPU processors from RAM were sold on the open market for pennies on the dollar. He probably didn't get much more than a couple bucks out of each one of those anyway, after all of the costs of the recycling people and stuff. Maybe we may have ended up paying a couple dollars to get rid of each of those, right? Some of them that didn't get recycled, as I understand, were sent overseas to other third world countries, which I'm sure really help promote honest and secure voting for these third world dictators, because we didn't trust them enough to use them. So why not send them to like frickin' Venezuela? You know, they need help with their election integrity, right? So a little wink wink there if you aren't watching this on YouTube. So that was just the amazing part of this, right? So Fasano helps, he defends Kurt Browning, Democrat turned Republican, and, you know, Pasco Republicans then embrace him because they just listen to whatever Fasano says. But it's not just Fasano, right? At that time, there was a guy named Mike Bilirakis, who was our congressman. Now, Mike Bilirakis had been in office like almost 4 decades. More than 3 decades, I think almost 4 decades. Just a ridiculous amount of time, right? So he's also, him and Fasano, Mike Bilirakis and Fasano are obviously, you know, longtime buddies. I would imagine they probably spent a lot of time out at Al Capone's hideout out there. Al Capone was from here. Actually, a lot of old mobsters were from this county and had homes here. But he was here, 3 decades. But, so Gus Bilirakis, who's just like this short little fat guy who I've ran into on several occasions. He's been completely worthless. He had information about ShadowNet back in 2015. Probably could have avoided, Russiagate, Russia for the last 3-4 years. We spent dealing with that. All of those people, as you know, if you watch Shadowgate or watch or go to my stuff, you'll see 3/4 of the people involved in Trump's impeachment were all directly tied to the work that I did on ShadowNet for General James Jones, Obama's national security advisor. Gus Bilirakis, the son of Mike Bilirakis, who's now been there like 12 years, I think collectively they've been in Bilirakis has been our congressman in Pasco collectively for the last 50 years. And Gus and Mike could not have been better friends and still remain best friends with Mike Fasano, right? So now you got Mike Fasano going rogue, saying all of these Republicans, he can't understand how these Republicans could let Trump get away with this. And then you got Gus Bilirakis over here going, I support President Trump. I support President Trump. Yeah, I do over here. Just freaking as evasively as you can. He wasn't a true Trump supporter, and you can tell that. I mean, he was just doing it for votes. Why do you think Kurt Browning switched from Democrat to Republican in 2002? Because that same month, the majority of voters, of registered voters, switched from Republican to Democrat, or from Democrat to Republican. So he just jumped on board, right? It was right after 9/11. It was like Bush was in office. Everybody was feeling patriotic that were Republicans. Democrats were running around. Yeah, I think Bernie Sanders was summering in Russia. So Democrats weren't really doing that well. And so Browning made a good tactical political decision. Let's just, commit the greatest betrayal you can to everybody who supported you and voted for you and switch parties. Despicable people. So Bill Arrakis has been there for, over Bill Arrakis has been in this position for a half a decade. So should we be surprised going into the Pasco DMV and seeing, Mike Fasano, and his assistant tax collector, as running basically a Clinton Cash charity scam. When you watch Clinton Cash, you're supposed to look at it and say, wow, that's bad. You're not supposed to be taking notes on how you can, deploy this operation within your own campaign in your own freaking community. No, it's there to go, hey, this is bad, right? So I don't, it's just, if it's legal, it should be illegal, right? It's that simple. It seems pretty simple, folks. If it's legal, it should be illegal. I can't believe it's legal. And so I'm going to go down to Gus Bilirakis because, I'm just a sucker for punishment. And like I said, when I was living overseas, I spent 5 years working with the DOD in South Korea. Went through a divorce, got remarried, blah, 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 blah. End up, hey, my Thai wife would like to come back over Christmas. I had a couple years left on my contract. My Thai wife would like to come back to actually meet my kids here in Clearwater over Christmas, in Florida over Christmas for the first time. Again, I had a above top secret clearance. I'm working for the Department of Defense. I'm on both myself and my then wife had SOFA visas, which meant the U.S. government required the ROC government, the Republic of Korea, to give my then wife a visa and me a visa, right? But when I tried to get her a visa to come over here for Christmas to visit my kids, I was denied because apparently they thought she was going to remain here in the country illegally as an illegal immigrant. Apparently, I was going to give up my top secret clearance and anything I was doing with the government and basically, harbor illegal immigrants. I don't know. She was my wife. They said, well, you got to do in order for her to come here, you got to do a marriage visa. And I said, well, why do you got to do that? Marriage visas take 2 years. And it's like, a month and a half before Christmas. How's that going to happen? And they're like, well, it's not our problem. Well, I guess it's not. Well, it kind of is their problem, but it's actually my problem, but it's their job to fix. I went to Gus Bilirakis on that. You would think that would be like right in line, right? You got a guy serving with the Department of Defense overseas. He's very responsible. He's got above top secret clearance. Hey, this guy just wants his wife of at that time over a year, who didn't really even want to get a visa in the U.S. So why should she even have to apply for a marriage visa if she doesn't want to come to live here anyway? We were actually at the time thinking of going to Thailand. I don't know. Things changed. A lot of bad decisions during those days. But we will move on from that. So we've got so he did nothing there. And then again, I took the ShadowNet information, General Jones to him. And what did he do? He reached out to OSHA. OSHA? Why the hell? I'm a whistleblower that was denied protections as a subcontractor when my job was constructively terminated in South Korea the day after I filed a formal written complaint of fraud, waste, and abuse, what's called a protected disclosure. And apparently they weren't protected, but again, I was working, my boss and the owner of the company was Obama's former national security advisor, former NATO Supreme Allied Commander. So I didn't really stand a chance. That's when I really started learning what was going on with the DC swamp here, my friends. And so, that's where we're at today. Again, I'd like to take a quick pause. Remind everyone they can watch this. They can watch The American Awakening every Wednesday from 7 to 8 o'clock on IRNbroadcast.com. You can watch it on freedomstream.tv. You can look me up on Twitter at PFC40book. That's PFC40book. And at The American Awakening on YouTube. Probably left something out there, but the page turned too quick for me to look. Gonna have to work on that, but it's actually working pretty darn good, right? So we're in the final 10 minutes of the broadcast here. So what I would like to do is kind of close that out. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going down to Gus Bilirakis, my congressman's office tomorrow. Say, hey, it's your favorite constituent. You know, and I wouldn't give this guy crap if he actually did his job, right? You know, if you had, you know, you'd probably call him a chubby little weasel too. If you couldn't get your freaking wife, if you could get her access onto a military base in South Korea, you could get her a visa. You know, the government says give her a visa, but you can't get her a visa back to the States, and your congressman can't kind of step in and say, hey, this guy is legit. He just wants his wife to be able to meet his kids for the first time in the U.S. And then he's got 2 years left on this contract for $120,000 a year. He's probably not going to give up to become a refugee in America, right? And that same week, the same, maybe even day, I mean, you can find the stuff on Twitter that I posted at the time, like that same week, Obama gives 1 million dreamers a visa, right? So here I am, Afghanistan veteran. I've been, 7 years overseas altogether, either in uniform or serving my country as a contractor, and I can't get my wife over here. But yeah, sure, go ahead and just let 1 million, dreamers in, because apparently a million people that jump the damn fence are less risk than me bringing her over here, right? So that's what I got. That's what I got from from Gus Bilirakis. Nothing. So yeah, I'm a bit ticked at them. I'm their constituent. They aren't getting paid to like me. You know, they're getting paid to help their constituents, whether they're Democrats, Republicans, whether they're short, tall, fat, skinny, black, white. Well, in Pasco County, they'll only help the whites. But that's what their job is, right? They're and if you've ticked me off this bad, and I can certainly justify 10 ways to Sunday, and then look at these people. I warn you about them. I warned you about Kurt Browning. Now, Kurt Browning, after Charlie Crist ended up leaving office, Kurt Browning comes back to Pasco County. He's now unemployed. He tapped this guy, Brian Corley, another weasel, to replace him. Brian Corley didn't campaign or put signs out or debate Kurt Browning like I did. Brian Corley was all this, can't get the touchscreen voting systems here enough. They give that seat to Brian Corley because Browning says, here, give it to Brian Corley. And then Browning comes back after he's finished as Secretary of State, and they tap him as supervisor, as the Pasco County Superintendent of Schools. Why? Because who's more qualified to run Pasco County school system than a failed 26-year election supervisor that has zero honor, integrity. That seems like the perfect person to put in our schools, which could explain why Pasco County cannot, our kids, my kids, have to figure out which bathroom they're supposed to use, because Kurt Browning doesn't understand the difference between, a pee-pee, right? He's got to go back to school himself, because Kurt, boys have pee-pees and girls have vajayjays, right? They're different, right? Girls make babies, right? And boys get slobbering drunk and help, expedite the process, but then they're pretty much done and out of it, And that's probably best for the women that way anyway, right? So there, I just taught you, Kurt. You don't need to, you don't need to have so much question about, that's what he did, right? So you bring in a 26-year incumbent Democrat and wonder why our kids can't determine whether or not they're boys or girls going to our schools. That's on you, Pasco. I stood out in front of Publix collecting 2,312 petitions to get my name on the ballot. I did everything I could as a good, Samaritan, as a good member of my community. But you guys, all you do is turn around and blindly vote because he's Republican or he's Democrat. You don't do 5 minutes worth of research. Why? Why? And then you get a piece of crap like this turning around and vote and saying, and a Republican, lifelong Republican, turning around and saying, hey, I'm going to support the Democrat. I'm supporting Biden, a 50-year incumbent Republican. Well, I think Governor DeSantis, which I'll be reaching out to him. I've got some contacts through Born to Ride for 45 and through my friend George. I got some other contacts. We're going to actually, DeSantis is from Dunedin. I can DM his dad, right? Good people, right? And let's see if our Republican governor, Ron DeSantis, doesn't want to look into this, what appears to be a just complete nonprofit scam that's being ran, that's a for-profit operation for our tax collector, right? That's some sketchy crap, people. Again, if he's getting away with it because it's legal, it shouldn't be legal. So we need to fix that, and we need to see if maybe Mike Bilirakis or Gus Bilirakis might want to call their friend up and say, hey, sorry guys, this jackass Berge figured us out. You're going to have to shut that down. Don't worry. Mosquito control, dog catcher's open. We'll get you squared away. No, don't keep putting these people into office. Don't you dare put these people back into office. I'm so sick of this. We have a brilliant opportunity right now with Trump as our president, and it's looking pretty good, like he's going to be there another 4 years. He's still there today, and it's the day after the election, and it's looking statistically pretty damn good. So just stop, people. Just do a little bit of research. Don't just listen to dumbasses like me either. I do my best to research this, but I'm being honest, right? I'm being honest. You gotta do this for yourself. You can't, you gotta get up off your couch, my friends. You gotta get up off that couch and just do something. Take some responsibility for your community, because these people, 50 years. Do you think they've gotten reelected because of anything other than their name? You don't think in the last 50 years there hasn't been a resident of Pasco County that might have been Democrat or Republican, an awesome advocate for true American values? We can deal with the D and the R. Just be patriots. Have American values. Don't just try to scam the system. My friends, we are coming up on the last 30 seconds of the show, so I really got to thank my Patreon supporters. Thank you absolutely so much. You can help contribute at patreon.com/TheShadowNetHacker. I will keep holding these people accountable. I'm like a magnet for fraud, waste, and abuse, folks. Help keep me going, and I'll make you proud. Good night, and God bless.